we're going to put the events of last night behind us, and by us, I mean me, and talk to you today about a use case that actually came up with one of our clients that I thought would be something that could be really useful for a variety of purposes for a variety of people. And so it was something that I wanted to share with the community. So today we're going to be talking about various ways that you can look at tracking your productivity using two tools that are free or mostly free. Outlook, the category function in Outlook, and Power BI, and more specifically Power BI Desktop. Before I get into all of that, I did want to introduce myself for those of you that I don't know. My name is Lindsay Shelton, and this is my first diving into the speaker circuit. I figured what better place than my home user group here. My current job is I am a consultant with Smarter Consulting, and so I've actually interacted with all of you in a variety of ways, even if you didn't realize it, since one of my responsibilities is helping organize and put on this user group every month. So, getting the Eventbrite updated, updating our website, sending out the resources, sending out the tweets, all of that good stuff. And if you're someone who, whether experienced or more inexperienced, who wants to dive in and give speaking a try too, it's not that scary. I'm only slightly terrified, by this very intimidating, mean audience. Feel free. We have a call for speakers on our website, and I believe I'm in charge of it, so I'll just make sure to include that in the email that we send out. And we're always looking for a variety of speakers, including first-time speakers. I am a Microsoft certified trainer, and I'm also certified in Teams admin and M365 fundamentals. And those are just some of the things that I've done in my time at Smarter Consulting. I made that transition over to the company in June of last year, and I have kind of been working on being a Jill of all trades, if you will, working on projects ranging from SharePoint intranet design and architecture to working as a junior developer with a senior dev resource on SharePoint framework, custom web parts, doing code review, debugging, and eventually working on rewriting the code. So, getting opportunities to learn and do lots of cool, new, different things on an everyday basis. This has all, been pretty new to me in the last year or so, because I actually spent my first 10 years in my career as a teacher. So between student teaching, summer school, long-term subbing, I've taught every grade from 5 through 12. So no, not adult learners necessarily. And I actually taught English and writing for 6 of those years before I moved into teaching intro to tech engineering. So if I'm a little rusty, I do have quite a background, but yeah, it's been a while since I've had to do some teaching. So I'm diving back into it. I am a proud mom, just, on a very personal note, of 2 big-boned cats who I tried to lock out of this room, and I did not succeed. So if any of them make an appearance, I apologize in advance. And if if any of this resonates with you, if you want to connect, reach out about any questions or anything else, or if you just want to talk about cats, feel free to find me on LinkedIn. I'm just Lindsay Shelton on there with the same profile picture that my mother is cropped out of. I'm sorry, Mom. And on Twitter at @lshelton_tech. Oh my goodness. The cats did make an appearance. Those cats. I can't believe that I accidentally put in a slide of Buffy, Archie, and a GIF of them yawning in quick succession. That's so embarrassing. I can't believe that I did that. But aren't they cute? Yes, I know. Thank you. All right, so now we'll actually get focused and get into things. So I wanted to start with setting up the use case. So where did this even come from? Why is this something we were even doing? It came from one of our clients at Smarter Consulting, and this client is one that is growing really rapidly, even in the time of COVID that we're all in. They've been doing really well. Their business model is that they acquire other smaller companies and, kind of work them under their umbrella. And so because they've got, all of these different things going on, there's lots of sales, business development work happening. Yeah, didn't do any yelling last night at all. And so, because they are growing so rapidly and have so much going on, they really wanted to be able to utilize the resources available to them as efficiently as possible. And because they are in the Microsoft 365 ecosystem, they reached out to us with this ask about something that they wanted to see. Can Microsoft help them with this? And so what they're looking for is, with their sales philosophy, they have 4 different value add classifications of activities that drive sales. So just these different categories that you could put a variety of meetings and tasks into. And everything else is not value add. There may be things that need to be done, but they aren't specifically activities that are driving sales. So they were interested in tracking how the business developers were performing in these value add activities. But, it needs to be something that would be pretty organic for them, that wouldn't be a huge time ask, because they are very busy, and they, wanted it to be something that would be useful to them, because they weren't necessarily looking at this as being a metric that the employees would be gauged on. It was more of a professional development tool in their minds that they wanted. And so, keep in mind with this solution that this is something that you're individually pulling in your own data. And so we needed something that would be simple, that, the users would scoff at the ask of being able to do this, and something that, again, they would be able to see just for themselves, because it's not the type of setup where one manager could pull in all of the business developers' stats and check those out. So we dove into research and looking at our options. And so some of the options that we researched and then ended up rejecting is not going to be workable options. There were Outlook macros. There was one where you put in the Outlook macro, you clicked on a meeting, you clicked the macro button, and it told you how long the meeting was. Okay, well, that's not that useful. There was one where it would tell you, it gave us a report where it said the total amount of minutes in those categories, but there were no date parameters that we could put in. And I even dabbled a little bit in trying to figure out, okay, how do I write Outlook macros? And by write, I meant smash together 2 macros that I found and try to add in a date time sort of parameter, and that didn't work. So that went nowhere. There were some Excel options, but they were way too complicated, and I knew that wasn't something we were going to be able to get user adoption for. There was a program that we found that you could install and buy after a free trial, and we thought, okay, well, this will be easy. Well, the program hadn't been updated in at least 10 years, and from what we could tell, and didn't even install correctly, so we never got to even try that out. And it also occurred to us, well, let's try Power BI, because it's a visualization tool. It's in the Microsoft 365 ecosystem, but it wasn't actually pulling in the name of the categories. And so therefore we couldn't use it to track the categories, or so we thought. This is a use case where I think another lesson from it is just the value and importance of teamwork. Because in this case, it was one person went and did some of the initial research, and then another person went back through that research and evaluated each of them for themselves. And one of us was able to figure out, oh, we can pull in the name of the categories to Power BI. And so off we went down that path. So the solution, how did we end up addressing our clients' needs? It starts with using categories in Outlook. Now, this is a totally out-of-the-box feature. You may or may not already be using these, but it starts with getting each of the users, well, really it starts at a business level, I guess, to define what categories you want for each of your users to set up. what makes sense for your business. You know, if we're talking, so Sharon, for example, she already does this on her own, but she has categories for each client that we have. And so for her, it would make sense if she wanted to get some productivity information about how she was spending her time to make one category for each client and assign meetings accordingly. Maybe it is you want a category for sales, a category for marketing, a category for HR, you know, however you want to set it up for your organization is however you want to set it up. You just want to have probably some sort of consistent expectations. And for our client, it was going to obviously be these 4 predetermined value add activities, which you can kind of see in my screenshot here. So I'm going to go ahead and hop out of the slideshow and show you what this looks like and how to do this in both the client app, and I'll hop over into the web app and show you as well. So you can see here, I am Megan Bowen in this instance. If you've spent any time in a dev tenant, you know Megan Bowen. I actually got a tweet from her the other day. She's on Twitter apparently. So check out Megan Bowen's account on Twitter if this is at all entertaining to you. I personally was a big fan and pretty excited that I got to interact with a celebrity. But anyway, so let's start by, I'll just click on a meeting and you'll notice we get this meeting series pop up here and we've got this nice categorize button. So from here I can access and click on any of my categories that I've set up. I can assign multiple categories to the same meeting. So you'll notice the color of this meeting changed, but it's still got a little orange in the corner. So whatever your last selected category was, so if I go unselect virtual meetings and reselect it, now that's going to be the primary color, but you can have more than one category for a meeting if that is your use case. I'm going to go ahead and click categorize again and then click all categories, because this is how we go in and we can add brand new categories and we can rename existing categories. That's a great question. Brad just asked if the categories are unique to each user. Yes, they are unique to each user. So this was for our client something that in the training we just went over. This is how you go and make the categories for yourself. So what we did is we just had them go in and rename the pre-existing categories. This used to be called purple category. If I click the rename box, it's a little hard to tell, but now it's an editable text field. And if I just click anywhere else, then it locks that in. I can also change the color. I can add a shortcut key for those of you that are big shortcut key fans. I'm not, just because I can't ever remember them. But if you are, you can assign up to 11 shortcut keys and use those. And we can also add brand new categories. So I could say that this is sales. I can pick a color. It looks like from this, there's at least 25 predetermined colors. Sorry, there's no hex values or, color chart to pick from. These are what you got. You can also add no color. So I believe you can probably add more than 25 categories. I haven't tested it myself. Sharon's probably gotten close to that boundary, but I didn't test that out personally. And you can assign it a color and a shortcut key from here as well. You may notice I do still have the red category and the yellow category in here. These are the 6 default categories. I will tell you it was a little buggy. I did try to delete these original categories and then they kind of repopulated the next time that I was in here with a slightly different name. It just acted a little funny. So give it a try. It's not like it blew anything up. It wasn't a big deal, but they just were acting a little buggy, and so I just left them here. But you can assign your colors however you want and select from here. You can also, if I go in and I make a new appointment or meeting, go ahead and categorize as a button right here. So I could categorize things as I go. And so with our client, that was our first step. We wanted to get the users to go back through. I think this was maybe the second week of January. We originally shot this over to them. We said go back through all of your pre-existing meetings and give them a category, and then trying to get them to adopt the practice of adding a category as they create each meeting. And just another benefit, it color codes your calendar. It makes it look prettier, which I personally enjoy. So however you need to, appeal to your users to get adoption, for me, that would work. That's all I need. To show you this it's not as intuitive, I will tell you, in the web app. And maybe that's just because I don't use it as much, but you don't have the categorize button up here. It doesn't show up when I try to go into my session. Now, if I double click and try to open this, you can see the categories are persistent. So it's still here, but what I actually have to do is, if this is a recurring event, notice none of these options give me a category option. So if I click view series, then I have categorize, and I didn't remake these for the web app, so it is persistent for each user between the web app and the client app. So I've still got my categories here. From here, I can click new category, and I didn't bother to count to see if these are more options than 25 or not. The one thing I found that doesn't work well, that I would recommend starting in the client app, is when you've got these default categories, you can change the color of the category, but there's no way to change the name of the default category. So you would be stuck basically just deleting the default categories and recreating all brand new ones. So if you prefer to just edit the default categories, then you've got to go through the client app and do that. But other than that, it functions pretty much the same. If I do a new event, categorize is an option for me as well. And I can go into new categories and manage categories from here. All right, so that's the first step of everything, is just getting some data together. So are there any questions so far? I know sometimes I could talk a little fast. All right, and if something else pops up, feel free to put it into chat. I've got it open in a window, or you can ask me after we are done. So that was our first step with our client. Was we said, okay, you've got to get your users setting up these categories and gathering some data. And so you want to get some good data in there. You don't want to just take 3 different meetings and then go ahead and try to visualize that data. A couple of weeks is probably good. I've only got maybe a few weeks worth of actual meetings in there. But you want to have some actual data to look at. And so once you've been utilizing the categories, either by going back through old meetings or just going forward for long enough to get some, a good amount of calendar events categorized, it's time to pull that data into a tool for visualization. So the tool we're using for that is Power BI Desktop. Now, you might hear Power BI and think, well, that's the one that we've got to have the license for, and it's got the interactive dashboards that are all fancy. And that is true, but that's not the one that we're downloading. The one that we're going to download, if you don't already have it, is Power BI Desktop, which is free. So it's obviously it's not going to have the same features as the Power BI licensed version, but it's got the features that we need. And that's also going to be another great thing for user adoption, is that you're not having to then license each user to be able to create these visualizations. So you just have to Google Power BI, and this was the first link, I think, Bing Power BI. And I think this was the first link that popped up, or the link is in the slideshow that I will send out. And just get it downloaded. And I promise you, it might take slightly longer just because I'm explaining everything, but if you follow these steps, it will take you less than 15 minutes the first time to build a visualization like this with your own actual meeting data and categories. And then if you want to update that data on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, it takes 5 minutes. So this is the kind of solution that might seem complicated or look complicated, but if you just follow those basic steps, it really is something that I think is very accessible to any user that you're going to encounter. Well, maybe not any user, most users. The basic steps, and I'm going to walk through all of these in a demo, but an overview of what we're going to do. We're going to import our Exchange data into Power BI/Power Query so that we can play with it a little first. We're going to transform the data instead of just loading it because we want to do a few customizations first. We're going to hide the unnecessary columns, get the extra junk out of the way we don't need. We're going to extract category values, which will make sense when you see it, but that was basically the thing that made us stop the first time and go, oh, this won't work as a solution. We're going to add a column that calculates the duration of the meeting. So rather than just having the start and the end time, how long is it? Because that's going to help us visualize it easier. Filter the time frame we want to represent and start visualizing. So by going ahead and opening up Power BI Desktop. So I am going to go ahead and scroll down to my Start menu. It is not the fastest to open, but it's free, so you can't complain too much. And once this opens, it gives you a nice coffee, tea, Diet Coke, whatever, break. You're going to see the basic field, but we're mostly concerned with this nice pop-up here. We want to start by getting our data. So I'm going to click on that. And we're going to connect this to a data source. Power BI has tons of different connections already there for you. You can kind of scroll through and see a variety of them, or go by category, Azure, Power Platform, all of that stuff. We're just going to search, and don't search for Outlook. We want to search for Exchange. And we're going to type it correctly too, and that'll help us find it. Now, I will tell you, as I was practicing this demo, I occasionally had problems where it wouldn't let me log on if I used Microsoft Exchange versus Microsoft Exchange Online and vice versa. So my advice here is, if one doesn't work, try the other one. But for our demo, I'm going to have us connect to Microsoft Exchange. So we're going to press connect here, and then it's going to have you put in the email address. So this will be your mailbox address because you've got to have a password for it. So obviously my name is Megan Bowen. And I'm going to type this wrong because it'll allow me to show you the login step, which gets skipped once you've logged in once. So you have the option to log in as an Exchange account or a Microsoft account. I found the most success with just clicking sign in as a Microsoft account, and then it'll open up a window where you pop in your password and get it connected. So I'm going to go back and actually type it correctly. But yeah, so Microsoft account is the best bet there. So I'm going to click OK, and it's not going to have me put in my password because I've already connected before. But know that it will prompt you for your password, which is why you can't just run this report for a team of people. So we can see that we've got our folder here. It's connected to Megan Bowen's email, and we are interested in her calendar. So we're going to click the checkbox next to calendar. That's all we need to pull in. And you can see it's actually pulling in a ton of columns of data. Most of this we don't need. Notice next to categories, one of our columns that we do need, it just says list next to everything. There is a way to fix that. So even though it's tempting because it's a pretty orangey button, instead of clicking load, you're going to click transform data. And what this is going to do is it's going to open up all of our data into Power Query so that we can customize it the way we want it before actually populating it into Power BI proper. So there's 21 different columns here. We do not need 21 columns. We don't need to mess with that many things. And luckily, unlike trying to do it Excel where I'm highlighting each column and deleting them selectively, they give us this really easy option just under the home menu where I can put the choose columns button. And I don't even have to go uncheck all of these manually. I can just select this box that says select all columns, and it'll automatically deselect everything for me. And I only want to keep 4 of the columns. I want to keep the subject, just because that's going to be the most unique identifier. You might see, oh, something's been miscategorized, and you go back into Exchange and fix it and refresh your data. So we want to see the subject. We want the start and the end so that we can calculate the duration of the meeting. And then down here a little bit, we of course want the categories because that's what we are using to, that's what we're trying to track. So I'll click OK, and it's going to get rid of all of those columns and just leave us with these 4 that we asked for. Now you'll notice this categories column. Why, I don't know. I didn't research it, but I just know that it says list instead of the actual name of the categories, and that's not what I wanted. So the way to fix that is this little expandy arrow button where you got arrows going left and right. If I just left click on that and click extract values, and okay, we don't need a delimiter to use for concatenating a list values. You will notice if you give it a moment, it will pull in our custom category names. Now you might notice there's a bunch of events that do not have a category name. Some of these, like science and company all hands, those are some of the demo events that Microsoft put in there. And some of these are, most of these are different holidays, which I'll talk to you about how to deal with those if they sneak into your calendar. We don't want those, because they're going to mess with our charts that we're trying to create. All right, so now we want to add a custom column because it's not going to be easy to chart if we just have the start and the end values. We instead want to know how long each meeting is. So up here in this top menu bar, I'm going to click Add Column and then Custom Column. And we're going to rename this from custom to duration. We always want to give it a nice descriptive name. Now, it's asking for a formula. If you're someone who you're scared of formulas, this is very simple. It looks scarier than it is, I promise. If it doesn't look scary, then awesome. But you actually only have to type in 1 letter. So we've already got the equal sign in here to start off our formula. What we want to do is we want to take our end column and subtract the start column from that. So if I take end and I just highlight it and I click insert, bam, it puts that column into the formula for me. I'm going to type in a minus sign. That's the only thing we actually have to type in ourselves. You can see it's showing errors because we need to have it subtracting something. And then I'm going to select start, and here I'll just double click it. There's multiple ways to add it. So now I've got the end time minus the start time, and no syntax errors have been detected. So we're going to click OK. And you're going to see a 5th column has been added. So it shows an hour, 30 minutes, an hour and a half, etc. And so we're going to do one more thing with that column. It's not going to be as easy to show our data in this form or to represent it, accurately. So I'm going to I'm actually going to right click in the middle of the bar here, go down to transform, and I want it to instead show the total minutes. So now instead of showing it in hour form, it's going to show 60, 30, 120, etc. And again, you'll notice these 1440, that's an all-day event. That's the holiday thing that got pulled in. So we'll worry about that in a moment. We won't worry. We don't need to stress. It's fine. All right. Now, the last thing we need to do is we want to filter this out, especially because we don't need Columbus Day in 2026 on our chart. So I'm going to press the down arrow next to the start column. And if I hover over date time filters, you can get really specific. Like I could click between, and I could give it a custom date range if I wanted to, that I want it from January 2nd to January 25th for whatever reason. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make it a little easier on myself. So I'm instead going to, and I could also, custom just select which ones I want to show. I'm going to hover over, and I'm going to go down to, it's a little finicky, go down to month. And I'll show you, I could select February, but I'll show you why you don't want to do that, because it's also including every President's Day from 2012 to 2026, which I don't need in my chart. So I'm going to clear that filter. And instead, I've got this cool option where I can select this month. So it's just going to show me February 2021 without me having to actually type in the first and the ending dates. And from there, we are ready to go ahead and start visualizing. So I'm going back to the Home tab, and I'm going to press Close and Apply. And we give it a second to populate. And you can see what's filling in over here is on the right, these fields. These are the things that I'll be able to select from in order to create the visualizations in the middle section here in this pane. So I've got my 5 columns, my categories, the duration, that custom column we made, the end, the start, and the subject. We are mostly concerned with categories and duration. So to start with, we're going to just make a really basic table. And all I'm going to do is click the checkbox next to categories and click the checkbox next to duration. And once I have those 2 values selected, you can see it's kind of small, but I've got a nice basic table where it's got the categories, it's got the duration, and it's given me a sum. Now, you'll notice if there's something that doesn't have a category name listed, it's either not been categorized, which could absolutely be the case that you maybe missed some of your meetings, or in our case, we know because of this duration being a day's worth of minutes, that's President's Day. So I'm going to right click and click exclude. And then it just hides that data, so it's not skewing our numbers. So we can see the actual total and the duration by category of how many minutes have been spent in each of those categories. So that's kind of a boring visual. So let's come up with something more exciting. And what's more exciting than a bar graph? So you'll notice it says here I can select or drag fields to populate this visual. So when I have the visual selected, like it is now, one of my options is I can just click the check marks again next to categories and duration. I'm going to right click on this outlier again and exclude that one. And now I've got a more accurate depiction of, in order, where my time is going in these value add activities. And I can go into format here, and this takes a little bit of time to get used to. Like, for example, you have to turn on show all in order to change your colors. And then we can pick, let's make this a nice orange. We can make this match whatever we've got in Outlook, the category colors. You can do whatever makes you happy here. So we have some nice colors here. We could choose to go back to format, but we've got to select our chart first. I could go back to format and say that I want data labels on. So it's got the total number of minutes on each column. You can change the title of it or turn the title on and off. You can do all sorts of customization. We're just barely skimming the surface. When we're comparing these 4 values, a pie chart is my favorite way to go as someone who never taught math in her life. And so I'm actually going to drag these down a little bit because I forgot something I wanted to add on here. And you'll notice, again, these are easy to resize. They are pretty dynamic if you're just interacting with this. And we can also drag fields onto here. So now I'm just left click, holding down the left mouse button, dragging categories over and dragging duration over. Right click, exclude that holiday. And again, we've got a nice pie chart here, and it shows us the percentages automatically. I can go through and change my data colors so they all match. So in-person meetings, we want it to be the orange, and telephone conversations, the pink. And you can obviously make it much prettier than what I'm doing here. Virtual meetings, blue, originating written messages, red. And so we've got some, oh, I've made 2 colors the same, so we don't want that. We cannot have that. So we're going to make it so we don't have 2 colors that are the exact same. And now that's better. There we go. I'm going to throw one more on here, which is a tree map, which is something I had never heard of. But I just think it's kind of another cool way to show the data. And I can add percentages on here, but again, it shows that originating written messages is obviously the shortest. amount, you know, the smallest category, the in-person meetings, is going to be the biggest category. And so right here in maybe less than 15 minutes, I wasn't timing it, but pretty close to it, we've got a nice chart. And I can even add a text box on here that says February 2021 value add activities, pop my name on it so that my I'm going to spell February right too. Apparently spell check doesn't really work here. Let's make this font bigger so I can actually read it how I'm spelling it. Oh, this is just, yeah. There we go. And I can resize it. And I could obviously make it prettier if I wanted to, but I don't. And so we'll put a nice title on here, spread it out a bit so it doesn't take up as much room. And then if we are ready, if we've, you know, this is how we want to set up our visuals, we're happy with it, what we can do to share this with other people is I can click File, Export, and export it to a PDF. And really simply, it's going to pop up a PDF for me that it's generated, and it's going to look exactly like that page that I have. So from here, I can print this, I can save it, I can pop it in Teams, I can email it to whomever might need to know this information. Or just save it for my own files, that I've got a nice, easy to view version that's static. It's not going to change, unlike Power BI, which can change, which we will get into. You'll also want to make sure to save your Power BI file itself. So let's call this demo 2. And the reason we want to do this is because, let's say in March 2021, I come in here, I want to update this. I will show you how to do this momentarily, but this is the part that takes less than 5 minutes once I've got this initial setup, that I can get all of my information updated and refreshed without having to rebuild all of these visuals or add the columns again, or, you know, put in any formulas or anything like that. So let's see here, figure out what window I need. All right, so when we took this to the client, we ended up, of course, you know, you probably had some experience with this. There were some additional requirements that came up. So our client loved the basic data visualization. It was exactly what the type of thing they were picturing, and they were really happy with it. But they thought about 2 other things that they would like to be able to see in this visualization. One of the things they wanted to be able to see was, well, we can see those categories in comparison to each other, but what we'd really like to also see is, okay, the total of those categories, how much time am I spending in any value add category compared to how much time in the week am I not doing a value add category? So, you know, is it 40% of the time it's value add, 60% of the time it's not? What's that ratio look like? Their other ask was they wanted to be able to see some sort of a longitudinal over time representation of the growth. You know, what's the change from month to month? In January, this is where I was at. In February, this was where I was at. And, well, I can say we've solved one of those 2 problems. So we're going to hop right back into our demo. And in doing this, I'm also going to show you how we can transform our data from month to month or week to week, or however you want to do it. So this is exactly what my screen would look like if I just opened Power BI Desktop from scratch and opened up my demo 2 file. But I would want to click Transform Data. And it's going to open that Power Query Editor right back up. And what I want to do is go back to my Start column, and I want to clear the filter. And you might need to refresh the preview if you realize, like, I've got some meetings that weren't coming through. But that data connection that you've established is going to stay there. You don't need to keep reestablishing it every month. And for our purposes, and it's not going to look actually that different, but I'm going to change this to date time filter for just this week. And so for your purposes, you know, if you're doing this monthly, then you could change it to this month, and then it would show you Marches if you're doing this in March. Or you could stay next month and go ahead and start charting March, however you want to do it. But you'll see why I'm doing week here in a minute. So it's, like I said, a little finicky. Let's go to week and this week. And we don't have a holiday this week, so we don't have to deal with that. And that's all I have to do. So I can click close and apply. And you'll notice it's going to refresh my visualizations for me. Now, because I scheduled most of these dummy meetings this week, the data actually looks pretty much the same. But I promise you, if I went and selected a different week, the data would refresh. It does refresh, I promise you. It just didn't for my example that I've selected here. And I'm going to update the title of this to Week of 2/8 so that we know that we've got a different set of time visualized here now. I'm going to get rid of this tree map. As much as I love it, we're going to get rid of it because the problem we were able to figure out, or the additional ask, not a problem, is how to represent the total amount of time spent in value-add activities versus the total amount of time not spent in these value-add activities. So for your use case, you know, maybe this is the total amount of time I'm spending with clients, and then you assume any other time is spent on internal tasks. And this is being able to do it without actually having to take every single minute on your calendar and plot it out. You'll see how we do that with something called a measure. So we're going to add 2 measures. So I'm going to click New Measure here. And again, this might look intimidating, but it's really pretty simple, and a lot of it's going to autofill for you if you know what to start typing in. And I'm actually going to backspace this title. If I try to change the title up here, it gets a little wonky. And I want to give it a descriptive name. So I'm going to call this Value Add Activities. This is going to measure and show me as an option the total, basically this 450, the amount of time I've spent in value add activities this week. So I'm going to start typing sum, and you'll notice that it's going to autofill different options for me. I can navigate it using the up and down arrow keys and just hit enter. And now it's already telling me, well, we know you want to sum up one of the columns. Here are the 5 columns that you have access to. So we want to sum up the duration column. So I'm just, again, using arrow keys to navigate and hitting enter. I put in an ending parentheses, which it might work even without it, but you know, good coding, we want to have open and close paren, open and close bracket. And so this is going to give me the sum of whatever's in that duration column. So it should be the number 150. So, or 450, sorry. So I'll press this little checkbox here. You'll notice the name updates automatically. And you'll notice in the fields over here, we now have value add activities as a field that we could put into a visualization. We want to add one more measure. So I'm going to click New Measure again. We're going to give it a descriptive name again. This one is going to be called non-value add activities. And this one, you will have to customize this number based on your use case. I'm going to put in the number 2400. And the significance of that number, unless anyone wants to shout it, anyone want to shout out what 2400 is? Okay, that's fine. Is the number of minutes in a 40-hour work week, 2400. So we want to take the total number of minutes in that 40-hour work week, subtract, so we're putting in a minus sign, and we just are going to type in a C for column or for calendar. And you can see right here, the 4th option down is it automatically gives me as an option for my formula, my measure, my custom measure that I just created, the value add activities one. I can select that. And so what this is going to do is it's going to take 2400, the number of total minutes in a 40-hour work week, minus the amount of time spent doing value add activities. So I go ahead and I click the check mark, and then all I have to do is once I've got those two values created, we want another pie chart here. I'm going to select value add activities and non-value add activities. And you can very easily see, okay, this person spent 18.75% of their week doing value add activities and 81% of their week doing non-value add activities. So that's another really easy metric that you could use to see, are you growing and being able to prioritize your time better to make sure that or if you're trying to get billable hours, that could help you figure out, okay, well, I'm clearly spending too much time on internal non-client related tasks. I need to shift my focus there a little bit more. And then again, I could export this to PDF. I can save it. I can do whatever I need to with it. And these two measures are going to update along with, because the only concrete value I put into them was that 2,400, which I can click here and update if I decide I want to do a month's worth, and then I could calculate the number of minutes in a 40-hour work week in a month, which I'm not going to do because I don't do live math. All right, so get this open again. So the second client asks, so tracking that growth from January, February, March, I'm still technically working on it. I wasn't able to figure it out before the user group, but I'm happy to tweet the solution, or if you reach out to me and say, hey, keep me posted if I figure out something awesome, or if you have an idea, feel free to let me know, because I've spent quite a bit of time researching it. I do want to mention there is one drawback with this method, which is we discovered it does not work on recurring events. So you might have noticed that I had, at least it looked like, a lot more events on my calendar than actually pulled into Power BI, and that is because they were recurring events. So there is a technical workaround for recurring events, and I've linked it here in the slideshow I will send out, but it's pretty complicated, pretty messy, and so something I knew that wasn't going to be useful for our particular users. So in general, you can just avoid using recurring events for this purpose, or if you want to dig into this, feel free. Charles, the thing we didn't get working was the client wants to see also a view where they can say, all right, in January, these were either this was the pie chart for January, or a table where you can see this is January, this is February, this is March. So without doing that manually, we haven't figured out yet a way to just have, some formulas or things like that. We'll talk about that more in a second, Charles. Since part of it is this is designed to be refreshed each month rather than something where you're pulling in 3 months worth of data, 4 months worth of data, etc. So we'll talk about it. But are there any questions that anyone has for me? And feel free to unmute yourself too if you just want to ask them, or pop them in chat, whatever you prefer. All right, well, if you do have questions, we've got a little bit of time left in the meeting. I'll stay hanging out, and feel free to pop those in. And you can, again, find me on LinkedIn or on Twitter at lshelton_tech. I do want to just shout out my sources that this acceleratorbi.com was very useful in helping us get started on this. And yeah, I'm happy to help. So make sure to, again, I'm totally happy to communicate with anyone, and happy to help educate everyone. And if you have any ways to help educate me, feel free to throw them in, because I'm always learning. So there we go. All right.